Hi, welcome to this video. We're going to cover what metabolism is. Often people blame things like metabolism when they don't really know what it consists of. So today we're going to talk about what our metabolism consists of. So we have our total energy expenditure. This is all the energy we use throughout the day, encompassing everything we do, going from breathing, walking, exercising, eating. So we can break this down into further subcategories. So we've got our total energy expenditure. Then we've got something you might have heard of, our basal metabolic rate, or BMR. So our BMR is everything to do with keeping us alive. So it has nothing to do with your activity through the day. It has everything to do with the systems, like I said, that keep us alive. So think of things such as maintaining the correct pH balance in certain parts of the body, breathing, respiration, so to extract energy from our fuels. This is what our basal metabolic rate is going to all be based on. It's going to be dependent on one's age, size, sex, that sort of thing. But we all genetically will have a kind of basal metabolic rate based on those sorts of things. The next component that our total energy expenditure is made up of is something called our non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is something you might have heard of as well, sometimes referred to as NEAT. So this is all the exercise that we do that is kind of activity through the day, as opposed to structured activity like playing a sport, going for a run, or lifting weights. So everything from, as you can see, I speak with my hands, I wave my arms around, that's going to take up a bit of energy. Blinking, talking, fidgeting, and just kind of walking to and from the kitchen to the living room, whatever it is all going to use up energy. And it will, of course, not be much, but over a long period of time, that can add up to quite a lot. And it actually makes up the major component of our kind of changeable part of our metabolism. So if we were to increase how much we fidgeted, walked around, stood as opposed to sat, stairs instead of the elevator, all those little things, they actually add up to quite a large component of our metabolism. And like I said, a changeable part of our metabolism. We can't change our basal metabolic rate so much unless we were to add a lot of muscle, and that's a whole different chapter. So that covers our NEAT part of the TEE, the total energy expenditure. So next we'll talk about our thermic effect of food. So this is the energy used to digest food. So it does take up a little bit of energy to do so, and we have to bear in mind what macronutrient we've consumed. Protein has the highest effect on our metabolism, and it can burn up to 30% of the calories consumed. When it comes to fats and carbs, we're looking more like between about 0 to 15%. Carbs being that little bit higher, closer towards the 15%, depending on what type of carb you have ingested. So that takes up a little bit of our portion of our total energy expenditure. And then last but not least, we've got our exercise activity thermogenesis. So think of the examples I gave earlier: running, playing a sport, lifting weights. What you'll find is there is a surprisingly small amount of calories used in the in the exercise activity thermogenesis side of our metabolism. So what I tend to talk about once I've introduced all of those kind of categories of metabolism, first of all, that's our metabolism, hopefully you understand. Second, it's looking at our NEAT. When those who are looking for fat loss talk to me about this sort of thing, this is when I start to bring up NEAT, because this is, as I mentioned earlier, taking up a majority of our energy expended through the day, and we can change it quite drastically. So the typical person has 8 hours of sleep, which means we have a 16-hour waking day. Obviously, we all have our jobs to do and our lives to live, but if we can, in those 16 hours, be more active, then you will find a large increase in our metabolism, therefore a better chance of getting into that elusive calorie deficit so that we can lose fat can be had. And with that in mind, it's things like getting off at a bus stop earlier than where you need to get to, and therefore you've got to walk a bit further, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, And trying to be stood for longer periods, standing requires more energy than sitting. So where possible, stand, move around, use your hands when you're talking, that sort of thing. And it will add up. If in those 16 hours we're much more active than we previously were, we're going to see a large increase in our energy expended through the day. And therefore, like I said, it may help you get into that calorie deficit. And there's just a few side notes I want to make when talking about metabolism. As I said at the start, not many people understand metabolism, and they may start to blame metabolism. Now we've got an understanding of what it is, there are a few things we have to consider when we talk about someone's metabolism. So there is that genetic component. There are things that we cannot change. And bearing that in mind, if someone has a metabolic disease and they are taking a strong medication, that is going to affect their metabolism. What you might find is if it slows their metabolism down, let's say they've got a thyroid issue going on, normally it is medicated, which means they might be back to what could be considered a normal metabolism. If it's not been brought up to their kind of normal metabolism style of energy expenditure, you might just find they have to work that little bit harder than the next person who doesn't have a thyroid issue to get fat loss, but it doesn't mean they can't achieve fat loss. It might mean they need to go deeper into a calorie deficit, use that neat energy a bit more. So I just want to clear up a couple myths that often get brought up when we talk about metabolism. So number one, people often talk about their metabolism being broken. That can't happen. It's literally the thing that is keeping you alive. So that will not be the case. That's that. Number two, the other one people often say is, oh, my metabolism is slow. And whilst that might be true, like I said, with those genetic things going on, we've got a metabolic disease of some description. Okay, that's fair enough. Your metabolism might be slow. As I've already alluded to, that doesn't mean we can't get fat loss. It might mean we work a little bit harder to achieve that fat loss than the person without a metabolic disease. And if you don't have a metabolic disease, you don't have a slow metabolism. You might find that you are one of those people who tends not to be very active through the day. Let's go back to my discussion earlier, talking about NEAT. Everything I've discussed there, let's see if we can increase our activity through the day, and voila, our metabolism is that bit higher. There was just one more myth I wanted to clear up. You might hear people talking about you have to eat frequently to keep your metabolism up. You might need to eat something to start your metabolism. None of that is true. It's just not correct science. As I've already said in this video, your metabolism is the thing that keeps you alive. It keeps all those mechanisms going that make sure we are staying in this kind of homeostasis. Our body is just running as is. So there's nothing you need to eat to keep your metabolism going. It's just not correct. I hope everything I've said has made sense today. I've tried to keep it really simple. Metabolism is fairly simple on the surface, but you can dig a bit deeper and it might get a bit more complicated. I've tried not to go there. Thank you for watching.